Okay. So I am delighted today to have Alexa and Jacqueline Child here, who are the co-founders of Dateability, which is the only dating app designed for people with disabilities and who are chronically ill. And it's an inclusive dating app, which I love. And, for me, I have studied and worked in the dating and disability field for many years. And when I saw the article on dateability in Jackson Company, and I read it, I said, oh my gosh, this is a dating app with integrity, which I gotta say, ladies, I had never thought that before. It's actually a dating app geared towards helping people with disabilities. So thank you for joining me and welcome Alexa and Jacqueline.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So share with us your story of coming to Dateability.
Yeah, so I became disabled due to chronic illness when I was 14, and I experienced discrimination, but not necessarily in the dating space. I only really began to see how people truly view and interact with disabled people after graduating college. I moved in with Alexa and we lived together for the first time as adults. And we were both dating, and she was not using the dating apps at the time, and I was. And no matter what, I couldn't ever get a second date. It was hard for me to even get a first date. And Alexa was always having to reject people, or just people were knocking down her door to get dates. And it was really confusing to me because we're very similar. And really the only big difference between us is that I'm chronically ill and she's not. And it really affected my self-esteem. I began to think that I really wasn't worthy of being in a relationship, and that I was a burden, and that it would be too stressful to date someone like me. And so I would get into these ruts where I either didn't date, or I would try to date, and then my confidence was very low, and it clearly reflected in that. And at any mention of chronic illness, I was either ghosted or met with very offensive comments, like people telling me not to have children, people saying it would be selfish to have biological children, or people telling me that I was a burden and confirming, my fears. And this went on for years, and I always looked for an app for people like me. And if you Google dating sites for disabled people, there are a few that come up. And so I would sign up for them, and then I would realize that one, either like they weren't real.
Right.
Two, the people on them were not real, or they were very sketchy. And they're just, I couldn't believe that there wasn't anything out there.
Or they weren't free.
Yeah.
So you can't even test them out for free and see what
Yeah.
you're getting. That's a big problem.
Yeah. And I would go back to the other mainstream apps, and the same issues would happen again. And then back in 2021, I had to make the tough decision to get a feeding tube due to gastroparesis. And I really panicked as to how that would change my social life and how that would change dating, since most of my dates revolved around, getting a meal for the meeting for the first time. And I expressed that concern to Alexa, and Alexa expressed that concern to me. And she said, yeah, I've thought about that too. How is that going to be for you? And we decided right then and there to make the dating app ourselves, because we knew I couldn't be alone. And yeah, we've come to find out that I'm really not alone, and that people have been looking for an app like this for years.
Yeah. Alexa, what was your process of watching your sister go through this and your thoughts about coming up with that app?
It was really hard and really sad to watch her go through this. She has so much to offer somebody, and she's kind and compassionate and smart and funny and really beautiful on the inside and the outside. And so I couldn't figure out why no one was giving her a chance. And I think maybe at one point, Jacqueline struggled with her identity as a disabled person and put a lot of focus on being disabled. But once that changed and she kind of came into her own and, had hobbies and, lived a full, very average, normal life, she was still getting rejected. And so I didn't understand why. And it was sad to watch, but I am an attorney, so I'm a problem solver by nature. And I wanted to solve this issue. And I thought that it would be, it doesn't have to be, if she found someone who's disabled or chronically ill, it doesn't have to be somebody with the same diagnosis. That is not necessary at all. I think that most disabled people, or most people with a chronic illness, do share a similar perspective and a similar understanding, even if their lives day to day are different and they're affected differently by their diagnosis. And so I thought that there'd be a safe place for people to meet other people that are similar to them or view life in the same way, because that is really important. And I think I put it up there with having the same political values and morals and ethics. And so I do think that's important. And I also thought that Jacqueline, didn't really have a strong sense of community when it came to being disabled. It's the largest minority in the world, but there's not a huge cultural identity or a huge community. And I think that's partly because the world is inaccessible. And so it makes it hard for people to gather. And then if you add in the past almost, we're about to enter the 5th year of a pandemic, that makes it even harder. And so I think that was also a struggle for Jacqueline. Everyone around her, besides our dad, who is married to our mom for 30 plus years, is able-bodied and non-disabled. And so I think that it's hard to relate. And even her friends would say stupid stuff sometimes that was offensive. And so I really wanted this to be a place where people can meet other people and feel safe and not feel judged or stigmatized.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like when you were doing the online dating to begin with, you did have in your profile your disability.
I didn't.
You did not. Okay.
No. I worked with my therapist to kind of find out when and how to disclose. And we came up that for me, it was best if I just brought it up when it was relevant. But the tricky thing is that changed from every single person I matched with. Specifically, like in Colorado, everyone is very active and they love to hike. And so oftentimes they suggest something active for the beginning dates. And I would have to explain that I don't hike or I don't go skiing all the time. And I do have these limitations and I live with chronic pain. And so that was usually when it came out. And then people would say like, oh, that's too much to deal with, too much stress. And I want someone who does every single activity with me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's then when you brought up that you then face the ableism,
Yeah, I would see the ableism, and I wouldn't even truly disclose the extent of my disability. I always sugarcoated it. I wasn't completely honest with, I guess, the severity and what my day-to-day actually looks like. So that was even discouraging, because I was like, oh, well, if I was really honest, then no one would want to date me.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it was hard.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've been reading your blog, which is wonderful, and from one of your blogs, you write, most people have to get a lot of rods to find their person, but no one should have to go through abuse, harassment, and discrimination to find them. And I thought that is so true and really captures what I refer to as sexual ableism, that people with disabilities are discriminated against in intimacy, dating, and relationships. So, how have you used your vision that no one should go through that in building and developing dateability?
Yeah, when we were creating Dateability, we wanted a way for people to disclose in a neutral manner, and in a way that there's not so much pressure or shame around it, and that it's just a part of us. And we created Dateability Deets, and if you want to explain what that is.
Yeah, so we didn't just want to create a dating app for disabled people, but then have it be identical to all the other dating apps, because the disabled experience is different, and we wanted to take that into account. And a big part of Jacqueline's struggles was disclosure, as she spoke about. And so we came up with Dateability Deets, and we wanted it to be fun and, not depressing or negative like the rest of the world often views this. And then and it's an extensive list of broad terms, no diagnoses, like chronic pain, chronic fatigue, food allergy, personal care assistant, limb difference. We tried to think of everything without becoming too long and overwhelming. And so we also included a type-in option. So if we forgot anything, or if somebody did want to include a diagnosis, which we do see often, they can add it there. And the section is optional, but I believe like 99% of our users fill it out, and they can check off as many that apply to them, and it goes on your profile and your basic information. And I think it's a really good way to start off a connection. For example, Jacqueline would put chronic pain in her profile. She has that on her profile. So if somebody sees that and they want to go on a date with her, they're not going to ask her to go on a hike or a bike ride first thing. They're going to know, okay, they have to, like maybe a picnic will be better, or a short walk, or just some coffee, something like that. And it doesn't have to go through this awkward dance where people have to figure out what to do, what activities to do, what questions to ask. You just kind of know. And then it also allows the person to use their bio to explain other parts of themselves and their lives and their interests, and not just spend the entire profile explaining their disability or chronic illness, which, of course, that has shaped Jacqueline and who she is, but it's not her entire identity. It's not only who she is. She has so many other things about her life going on. And so I think that that's important for users to really let their true selves shine in their profile.
I think that's brilliant that you have come up with that, and that seems like a much more natural way to share your information. So can you walk me through the process of what someone experiences when they sign up for Dateability?
So it's very similar to all the other dating apps. You know, you put in your credentials, your email, password, it sends you a code to verify that, you know, your email or phone number is legitimate. And then you go on to put in your basic information and your name, we have an interest section, where your location, photos, and each photo has a place for image descriptions, which the other apps do not have. And we thought that was really important. They're also optional, but a lot of our users, because there is this understanding of accessibility, they do include them. Dateability Deets section, and then your preferences. So your sexual preferences, your age range, whether or not you want to see everyone on the app that meets those preferences, or if you want to limit the results to a 100-mile radius from where you are currently located. And then you start swiping. You can also sorry, I forgot a step. You can verify your profile, which you should. And that is you take 3 pictures. We came up with 20 poses. We tried to be as accessible as possible in our poses. You can choose 3, submit pictures of yourself. We personally review them and compare them to the photos on your profile, and then you get a badge. And so that reduces any kind of catfishing. You know that the person in the pictures is the person that you're talking to.
I love that. I love that.
Important. The other thing, you know, safety is really important to us. The other thing, when somebody goes through the onboarding process, we give them an overview of the app and a safety tutorial. We believe that, you know, being educated is the best way to stay safe. There are always bad actors out there. We are constantly patrolling the app for people who are spammers or bots and removing them. But at the end of the day, they are on every social networking platform, Instagram, Facebook, Tinder, everywhere. And so the best way to keep oneself safe is to be educated and know the red flags to look out for. And so we walk our users through that as well. And then once you get swiping, we have a user-generated algorithm. And so that means that we just show everyone that meets your age and sexual gender preferences. The other apps will try to show you people who like they think are most compatible based on your interests and your other parts of your profile. And from our experience on those apps, it never works out that way. The algorithm fails. And I think providing the algorithm that we provide, a user-generated algorithm, it's more like meeting organically. You know, you're meeting out and about. There's no one filtering who you're going to meet in real life. Whether it's at a concert or a restaurant, the universe isn't there just saying, oh, you might not be compatible, you can go, you might be compatible, you're in. And so we really want to give everyone all the options. And so then you can like people, and if they like you back, it's a match and you can start messaging. And then you'll see people who liked you, and if you like them back, again, it's a match and you start messaging, and hopefully, you know, relationships are formed.
So they can message and back and forth on the app.
Yes, and we suggest that our users keep early communications on the app. It's the safest way. You're not giving out too much personal information too early. And so we really do encourage those conversations and to take place on Dateability.
Okay, good. And it's there any point in which there's a fee?
No, not right now. Right now, Dateability is completely free. Eventually, we will introduce a subscription model that'll have added features and benefits. So we will charge for that premium model, but there will always be a free version.
Yeah, and that was very important to us. You know, we understand our target market, and even just personally, neither of us like to pay for apps. And if we can get a free version, we will use a free version. And lots of times, if something's you only charge, you don't get as many customers. And so we really want to make the app accessible.
Okay, so, can you give us a preview of what your premium features might be?
Yeah, we're in the process of implementing advertisements, and then so our premium version will be ad free, and then we would like to start being able to filter by dateability deets. So if you are, looking for someone with a chronic illness, you can select chronic illness. And then of course we're going to enable being able to search in different areas of North America.
Okay, and let me go back to clarify how is it that people get matched now?
They have to, yes, they have to like each other. So there's a green heart button and a red X button, and you can either click either of those buttons or swipe in either direction. And if one person sees a profile, like say John, there's John and Jane, and John sees Jane's profile and he likes it. And then Jane decides to like John back, a match is created and they can start messaging.
Okay, so you happen to have that mutual look. Okay. Are you able to share how many users you have right now?
Yeah, we are just under 10,000 users, and so we have been around. Our 1 year anniversary is coming up at the end of October, and so we're really proud of our user base. It's growing every day, and every month we're seeing a big uptick in users. And we know that there are over 60 million Americans with American adults with a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want everyone who is looking for an app like this to know about it, because there finally is a solution.
Right. Okay. And I know that your users are people with and without disabilities. Do you have a breakdown of how many users don't have disabilities?
Yeah, about 7% of our users classify themselves as able-bodied, but of course some of those users are, they might have an intellectual disability and then they classify themselves as able-bodied, but about 3% of our users are non-disabled.
Okay. And do you have a sense of the geographic range of the app?
Yeah, we're seeing clusters in the major metro cities in the United States, New York, California, Miami. And as far as age, we're seeing millennials, but we do have quite a big like 65 around that age, which has been nice to see, because we've received feedback that even people who might be older and might be, around disability more, still experience that ableism and isolation.
Right. How about have you said it in other countries?
Not yet. That is our goal. We get emails almost every week asking us if we're available in the UK, the EU, Australia, New Zealand. And so we really want to start launching in those countries. Their privacy laws are a lot stricter than the United States. And so it can be pretty costly and like very legal heavy. And although I'm a lawyer, I'm not that kind of lawyer. And
Right.
so we are waiting until we're in a better financial position to be able to expend like those resources into expanding. But if anyone listening wants to help sponsor us in other countries, we would love to do that. And we know that there's a need there too, because there isn't anything out there in any of these countries either.
Right. exactly. And there's a lot of people in other countries looking.
Mhm.
I have a question that actually as I mentioned to Jacqueline, I already been referring the app to the people I work with, and one of the people raised a question that I thought was a pretty good question, and they said, "What about devotees? Have you encountered that, or do you have a policy around that?"
Yeah, that was also a concern for us. I was not familiar with the term before starting this, but quickly we heard the concerns, and from our research, you know, that there's really kind of. Sorry, did you hear that?
I did. It's okay.
The
Whatever
military
it
plane.
was.
Yeah, I think they're military jets flying really low. It sounded like it
Oh,
just went right over.
oh,
So
okay.
sorry.
Okay. Okay. And you know what? Before you continue, Jacqueline, I'll just say for anyone who doesn't know, a devotee is someone who is looking specifically for a disabled partner because they get aroused, let's simplify it that way, by witnessing the struggle that many people with disabilities are perceived to have in the course of doing everyday tasks. And
yeah,
that's my very unofficial definition of devotees.
yeah, and there it's an understandable concern, and we have not received any reports of devotees on our app. And you know, with every block and report button, we have a little form that people can fill out as to why they're blocking or reporting someone. So a lot of times people will block others because they're just not interested, and it's helpful to know so we don't remove them from the site. And we have not received any reports of devotees. That being said, if we did, we would remove them from the app. It's important for Dateability users to feel safe and feel that they, you know, are valued and respected for who they are. And yeah, yeah, I would say that, like, devotees is on the other end of the spectrum. You have the people who like abuse and harass and discriminate disabled people, and then you have the devotees who fetishize them. And we're really looking for our users' experience to be right in the middle, like just neutral, positive, safe experiences. And so that's really important to us. So yes, we would remove them from the app. We think, you know, some of the apps, so we joined all the disabled dating apps before we embarked on this venture. Like between the two of us, we downloaded everyone and created profiles. And a lot of them did have people that, while I don't know for sure, it gave me the devotee vibe, and made me feel icky. And I think, you know, when you look up those apps and you find out like who's behind them, if there's anyone behind who's building this, who's supporting this venture, you can never find anything. You know, you find a name and you find out they've done just like 20 other apps. And so I think that our story, the fact that we really did become the face of Dateability and made this, you know, Jacqueline's story known, does help prevent people with nefarious intentions from joining Dateability, because they know it's legitimate. They're not going to get away with it. And so, you know, we did see some bots join in the beginning and we just removed them immediately. And we've noticed that as time has gone on, those bots joining, the number has decreased significantly. And so we are sending the message that we are real and we mean business.
Great, great, great. So since I specialize in teaching people dating and relationship skills. I'm curious from your perspective, what you see as skills that are helpful for people in dating and relationships.
I think the most important is communication, and really feeling comfortable enough to communicate with that person. And that's something that I have not found yet, is that person that I can trust, and they earn my trust, and I feel comfortable enough to tell them about anything, but including my disabilities and chronic illnesses.
Mhm.
And we've also seen quite a bit of internalized ableism during this process, and that is something I absolutely struggled with for many years. And but I've really worked through it, and we see that a lot with people, one, either like assuming that people aren't real because they may be conventionally attractive, and they say that disabled people can't be attractive, and that's coming from even disabled people themselves. Or two, people saying that they wouldn't date anyone else with a disability, even if they are disabled themselves, because they would never want to either live with someone who lives a more depressing life, as a lot of people put it. And I really disagree with that. I think disability is so diverse, and it manifests in so many different ways, and that even if someone has a disability that affects every part of their life, it does not mean that their life is horrible, and it does not mean that their life that they don't have fun. I think a lot of people look at my diagnoses and the stuff that I've gone through medically and think, oh my gosh, how could she live like this? And it must be so sad. And it's like, I have a very fulfilling life. I have so many hobbies, and I have great relationships with friends and family. And I think it can just be short-sighted to cut off this entire group of people, especially a group of people that you're a part of.
Right, exactly. And I like to say, people with disabilities have such a hard time being employed, as we all know. Yet, when they are employed, they are the most loyal workers you will find. And I believe that's true of relationships. That if you have a partner with a disability, because of the life experience of dealing with adversity and struggle, that gives you skills to apply to relationships.
I completely agree. And I think that, yeah, my adversity has made me strong and compassionate and resilient. And I really don't get stressed out by any of the little things. And I know that that is a really valuable quality to have in a relationship. And, I don't get scared away easily. So I completely agree.
Mhm. Do you two have a success story that you can share?
No marriage is yet. About a couple months into when we first launched, end of 2022, two of our users started dating and had a relationship. They met on Dateability. They did break up ultimately, and it wasn't due to anything disability related. It was very normal breakup stuff. And so, but it was so nice to see because, Jacqueline has spent 5+ years on the dating apps and did not have any kind of success like that. And then, we've heard of other people just making connections and talking with people. We know someone else who had a lot of self-esteem issues when it came to dating, and he was just about to graduate college and was very fearful for what the dating life would look like, as an adult outside of school. And Dateability really helped him connect with people and feel more comfortable and feel more confident. And that's also, even if you don't find your person right away on Dateability, like, we love to hear that as well. So yeah, we know that the first Dateability wedding is coming, but it will take some time.
Great. And you only launched less than a year ago, correct?
Right.
Okay. And I must say you have gotten some very good press
No, thank you.
already from it. So, okay, I'm gonna wrap up by asking you both questions that I ask most of the guests on the show. And the first is, how do you think society can change to see disabled people more as potential partners?
I think that an important thing to remember is that anyone can become disabled at any day and at any point in time, and that it's some people are born with it, but some people are not, and that it isn't this bad and ugly thing, and it can really make someone, like we discussed, a good partner. But remembering that no one is guaranteed their health is really important. I had seen that comment a lot in response to me, like, I want someone who is healthy. And okay, yeah, you might go and find someone who is healthy today, but that does not mean that they will have their health tomorrow. And that's really not what matters in the long term. You want someone who will be by you in sickness and in health, and you want someone who loves you for you and not because of what your body can and cannot do.
Yeah. What do you think would be the most helpful advice you can give someone with a disability wanting to get out there and begin to date?
I'm gonna give that to you first because
Okay.
you are disabled.
Yeah.
So I think for me to give advice is
the best piece of advice would be to get out there. It's really hard to make that first step. It's like when everyone says the hardest part about working out is putting on the clothes. It's like that. Like, it's hard, but it's important to do it. And that there's so much isolation within the community that we need to foster these relationships and this sense of community as much as we can, and Dateability is a great place to do that. It's also, try new things, try new ways to meet people. You never know who you're going to meet when you're out, if you do some sort of activity. And yeah, it's hard to put yourself out there, but it's important.
And I think my advice would be to not lose hope and, to remain optimistic, even through the hard times when you feel most down. I truly believe that for those who really want love and a partner, there's someone out there for everybody. And, maybe your person's on Dateability. So join Dateability and give it a shot.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who may be non-disabled about considering dating someone with a disability?
I'd say that you don't really know what it's going to be like until you try. You might have these preconceived notions and they might be totally wrong. Or maybe some of them are right, but they don't, that's okay too. And you're fine with dating somebody with a disability, and it's so fulfilling, and love really makes the world go round. And I think that if somebody imagine like their person out there is disabled, they would just give up love and their chance to spend a lifetime of happiness and fulfillment with someone and be alone just because their person was disabled? That just seems silly. And like Jacqueline said, the majority of people age into disability, and for people become disabled even before they get older for various reasons. And so I think to just close the door on something that could potentially be amazing is, it's sad and it is short-sighted. And then I also think that if you take the dive and you are dating somebody with a disability, communication is key. Like Jacqueline also said, ask questions politely, try to understand, check in, make the other person feel safe enough to tell you when something's bothering them. Jack and I, it's different because we're sisters, but anytime we go for a walk or something, I always say, you let me know when you want to turn back, because I know that my abilities are different and I can walk way longer than she can. And so I'm very aware of that. And so I let her tell me, and she feels comfortable telling me, okay, do you want to head back now? I think I'm ready to go. And so I think just having that trust and that respect and that sense of safety is really important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, oftentimes my husband and I will walk, can't help but say the same thing to me. I'll say, okay, how about now? Let's turn around now. So, yeah, that's a great advice. And we're gonna hook up the link to the app in the show notes, the link to your website. Is there anything else you would like link up so that people can find you?
You can follow us on our Instagram at Dateability App. That we like to amplify disabled voices, and then also just keep up with the app and what we're doing with it. But yeah, we do have a web app version as well. It's dateabilityapp.com, and it's identical to the smartphone apps, but it's accessible from your computer, and that's great for people who may have different accessibility needs.
Right, yes, and because I do know that oftentimes the phone apps don't work well. So that was dateabilityapp.com.
Yep.
Okay. And we will link that up in the show notes. Okay, so I forgot to tell you that before we recorded. I'm gonna record saying goodbye to you, but don't hang up. Okay, because I'll end the recording and then we'll talk. So, well, Alexa and Jacqueline, I want to personally thank you because for years now, people have asked me what is a good dating site for people with disabilities. And they have always had to say there is nothing I can recommend. And they feel terrible doing that. But now I have an answer for the Dateability app. And I must say, I also shared with my husband that I was interviewing you to and telling him about the site, and he's like, that is a brilliant name for a dating app for people with disabilities.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience with us. So maybe in another year or two, we can get you back on to give us an update.
Definitely, we would love that.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much.